Good afternoon and welcome. I would like to begin by thanking everyone who could be here with us today in Columbia's beautiful St. Paul's Chapel to celebrate the life and legacy of our dear colleague and friend, Professor Katayun Katie Barmak. I'm Professor Mark Spiegelman, the current chair of the Department of Applied Physics and Applied Mathematics, which houses the Material Science program at Columbia, where Katie was a vital and now much missed member. I'll attempt to be your host today and introduce some of the family, friends, colleagues, and students who knew and loved Katie best and have come to share their memories and tributes. After the service, the family and I would like to invite you back to continue sharing stories and memories at the reception in the APAM department in the Mudd Building. But to get us started, it's my honor to introduce Professor Shifu Chang, the Morris A. and Alma Shapiro Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, a world expert in multimedia, computer vision, and artificial intelligence, and maybe more importantly, my boss, the Dean of the Fu Foundation School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, to welcome you on behalf of the school. Dean Chang.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you for being here with us as we remember the life and work and legacy of our dear friend and colleague, Katie Barmak. I also especially want to thank Mark Spiegelman and the staff, everyone in the Department of Applied Physics, Applied Mathematics for organizing this special service today. Many of us know Katie as a colleague and a dedicated and extremely talented researcher. To her students, she was a mentor and a role model. She joined Columbia University in 2011, I think just before Mary became the dean, and have a chance to work with Mary to really start the whole Columbia initiative on nano and material science to grow. So she joined Columbia and immediately recognized with the name professorships, the Phillips Electronics Professor of Applied Physics and Applied Mathematics. Was so excited to recruit her to Columbia. Prior to Columbia at Carnegie Mellon University, she was the first tenured female professor at the College of Engineering. Here at Columbia, she became director of the Material Science and Engineering program in 2013 and as part of an APAM department, as Mark mentioned. And I remember every time I saw her, how excited and everybody in the program here in the 2015 to create her lab, the state-of-the-art transmission electron microscope, TEM, laboratory as part of a Columbia Nano initiative. She directed every aspect of the instrument acquisition and lab renovation. I remember a few times I bumped to her in the elevator. She was so excited about, oh, the instrument is coming from Japan, it's shipping on a cargo, we are tracking the location, we'll be here anytime, any day, cannot wait to get it installed and set up. She was so enthusiastic about having a modern microscope on campus and committed to the lab mission to train students, researchers in the theory and the practice of scanning and transmission electron microscopy. And she's really a leader and really a wonderful pioneer in this field. The facility was also not only to the lab, to the department, was open to all of the Columbia and the greater New York communities and has had a huge impact on the research and education mission here on Columbia, as well as the greater community, the whole region and the whole country. This spirit of a collaboration really energized Katie's work. She served in professional societies and editorial boards, chaired many conferences and symposiums, and was recognized by numerous awards for her research and her leadership service in the whole society and community. In 2017, we have an honor to recognize her contribution, bestowing her the Edward and Carol Kim Award for Faculty Involvement, a school-wide award that recognizes research excellence and commitment to teaching and student mentorship. Some of Kathy's students and colleagues today will share their memories here with us today. And we offer our sincere condolences to her family and her friends, her mother Rosa, her husband Frank, and her brother Babak. Kathy has left behind a lasting legacy of excellence that will be remembered for many, many years to come. And I will always remember her enthusiasm, her intelligence, her generosity, boundless energy, and her cheerful disposition. She will be greatly missed. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shifu. Okay, my turn. Again, I would like to welcome you again, this time on behalf of the department, and just to share a few of my own thoughts about Katie. You've heard much from the dean here, so I can get rid of that part. But as you can read in the program, I'll fill in some of the beginning, though. So she's had a really remarkable trajectory. She was born in Tehran in 1960, emigrated to England for boarding school just before the Iranian Revolution. She excelled in school. I believe she had the person who tells the story best is you, by the way. She had the highest marks in the national chemistry exam in England and gained access to Cambridge University, where she earned top marks for both her bachelor's and her master's degree. And then she moved to the other Cambridge to get her PhD in MIT, which she received in 1989. As Shifu said, next 3 years she spent at IBM, and then moved to Lehigh, and then Carnegie Mellon, and we are so pleased that she came to us in 2011. She was a distinguished scientist, her career marked by exceptional accomplishments and well-deserved recognition. And most recently, she was named a Fellow of the Materials Research Society, one of the highest honors in the discipline. And I suspect she was quite proud of that achievement, but I think what really drove her, though, was the joy of understanding both the fundamental physics and beauty of materials, particularly at the grain scale. She's always telling me, it's the scale, the only scale that really matters for real materials. Her weapon of choice was the transmission electron microscope, as Dean said, a delicate instrument that lets you image the world at the atomic scale, but demands extreme precision, patience, and care, much like Katie, although I wouldn't say she was delicate. She worked tirelessly and with uncompromisingly high standards to bring that capability to Columbia. High standards were certainly one of her hallmarks. She expected excellence of herself first and foremost, and challenged everyone around her to rise to the same level. Her standards extended to all of her work, particularly in teaching and mentoring. As many students, and I believe there's some here, will attest, she was the last bastion against grade inflation. Need I remind you, crystallography begins with a C. But she's not trying to be difficult. She just understood how much work excellence requires and was always willing to help others to attain it. So it really was no surprise that she received the Kim Award for faculty involvement. It's not just for teaching, but it's also for those who show a personal commitment to students, and we will hear from several students today. Now, I understood all of this when I was here. I've been her colleague for about 15 years. But to be honest, I don't think I really truly understood her fully until, unfortunately, after she passed, when I learned much too late that she was also an accomplished dancer in her youth. And not just any dance, but ballet, an art form that endures pain in pursuit of beauty and creates the illusion of effortlessness through relentless work. And I think that was Katie in a nutshell. So she was a scientist, she was a colleague, she was a friend. But at heart, I think she was a dancer. And I think that's how I will choose to remember. So thank you. But to be fair, I only came to know Katie relatively recently and at a professional level. Our next speaker, though, goes quite a way back further. So it was my pleasure to invite her brother, Barmak, to come and say a few words.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. She would have loved this. She loved the weather and she loved the graduation. And I didn't realize, I guess the setup is happening now. And I saw some students walking around in their gowns. So he made it very special. But in our lives, I think there's certain events that we experience that literally turn time into lead. And her passing has really been one of those events for me, and probably the toughest one for me and the most painful. But she truly loved university life. I mean, she got a bachelor's and master's and PhD in studying in the highest grade in chemistry in England. And in Iran, our grades are out of 20. And every subject, she had 20 out of 20. And then her average was 20 out of 20. Just to put that in perspective, mine was 15 out of 20. And I had to beg, borrow, steal, blackmail, or bribe to get a passing grade in discipline and religion. So that kind of puts us apart as to how close we were and how much we got along, which was incredibly good. We never fought. We never raised our voices. And we were truly in our lives. And as I say, she loved teaching. She loved university setting. I'm probably one of her first students. When I was about 4, she was in first grade or second grade. She insisted on teaching me the multiplication table, which I learned up until 12 times 12, which is 144. And I couldn't go much further than that. And my mother had to keep reminding her that I'm just a 4-year-old. And like I said, even in my youth, 15 out of 20. Okay. So, and she loved research. She absolutely loved it. And she went in industry, as they mentioned, in IBM. And she was like, that's not for me. I'm going to go to university. And then she went to Lehigh, where Xerxes was born. And she set that up before going to Carnegie Mellon and coming here. And she truly had a challenging, I would say, life probably from like childhood. But she always strived to make the best of every day, even when we were kids, regardless of what challenges were thrown at her. But sadly, she was up against a formidable and essentially a relentless adversary towards the end. And that's testament to her of how much she accomplished while going through that. For me personally, there's a certain solace in the purity of the pain that I feel because of her absence. But in our relationship and everything that's happened, I have no anger, guilt, apprehension, resentment, regret, or remorse or confusion. It's pure pain, it's pure form. And it's a gift for having her in my life. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. And I would not change a moment that we shared together. And I don't recall any bad memories with her. Every single picture that I went through, it was always a good memory. So that's a testament to who she was and how she lived her life. In looking at kind of how I feel and sort of where you fit in, because we really truly were close, is that there's a word in Portuguese, which I'm going to really mess up the pronunciation, but I believe it's like saudade, which closely translates to the presence of an absence. So she's always there, and it's something that, it's not something that you battle or you fix. It's just something that you carry. So I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life, and I'm sure, that some of you will also do that. But in closing, she really did make the best of everything. And in July 2012, when she found out, and she had called me, and we always, called it the way it was. We never, sugarcoated it. She told me what's going on. And the next sentence out of her mouth was, I didn't have enough fun. And hopefully she did after that. And I hope that you guys do too. Don't forget that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as I think many of us have mentioned earlier, that Katie was a remarkable teacher and mentor, beloved by our students. And so our next section will present some reflections from 2 students, recent undergraduate Lauren Gray, who is also an artist and designed today's program. Thank you, it's lovely. And as well as from one of Katie's recent graduate students, Dr. Matthew Patrick. So take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren. I'm a third-year undergrad and former Barmak Group Research Assistant. I first met Professor Barmak as a freshman at the APAM department's October open house. I told her I was split between chemical and materials engineering, so she spoke to me at length about her different fields of research that only materials engineering could enable, then our shared love of art, then showed me her lab and introduced me to Matthew. I remember I felt her enthusiasm for the subject. I saw the paintings covering the office, her material science inspired Macedonite earrings. And I thought to myself, I have to pick this as my engineering major, and I pray the school professor lets me work for her. I emailed her the next day, inquiring about any undergraduate research assistant openings, deciding that I give it a week. And if she didn't respond, I'd try again next semester and focus on adjusting to college instead of taking something else on. Professor Barmak emailed me back in 8 minutes, warmly inviting me to come back to her office that week and to speak to her more. I arrived prepared for an interview, and instead, she gave me a presentation of what I'd be working on as if I already had the job and the schedule of upcoming group meetings. Then, as an afterthought, she asked me if I knew how to code in Python, which, mind you, was the programming language all of what she had just presented to me was written in. I told her honestly and sadly that I didn't know Python yet, assumed that definitely disqualified me from joining, and apologized for wasting her time. I'll never forget, Professor Barmak told me, "You've done far more difficult things. You'll figure it out," then sent me to get onboarded with Matthew. She was right. I learned. That semester turned into a summer position, and summer, as she always said, is when the real work gets to happen. Professor Barmak and I both had longer commutes. We'd get to the office early to beat rush hour. I loved those early mornings when she was in. While preparing the office kettle and a cup of tea, she would mention to me and reminisce about things like having been a ballerina in her life, for most of her life, and casually founding her own ballet company. And I'd look at my brilliant professor and think, wow, I can't believe she did that. Or another time, because we were having one of those rainy New York days, she shared that she was coxswain of the men's heavyweight rowing team at Cambridge and then at MIT, the person at the front of the boat that screams at everyone else, instructing the whole crew, and how there were many mornings on the river, quite damp and miserable like our present weather. And with that one, I'd look at my brilliant, barely 5-foot-tall professor and thought, wow, I can't believe she did that. I loved our quietly early hour talks before I went back to cursing at my code and she went back to cursing at her grant proposals. It was one of those early mornings that she found me crying and trying to pull myself together immediately after I got the call that my mom's cancer had metastasized. And on top of everything else, I was panicking about handling calls with our insurance again. Professor Barmak put the kettle on, stood next to me, and coached me through it. She didn't tell me it would be okay. She told me how to make it okay, what questions to ask, what key phrases to use, and reminded me that I had it in me to power through this and that this strength was the best way for me to help my mom. Her words were exactly what I needed in that moment, and the lab continued to be the space that I needed that summer. She was always tough and professional, but showed that she deeply cared when it mattered most. During one of the most chaotic times in my life, she created this safe haven of calmness, logic, and order where there was always tea and community and full laughter. And that was so completely Barmak. She did not make the world of research feel gray or sterile or intimidating. She made it feel vivid down to her iconic fashion choices. She used to say that each morning she'd look at the weather forecast and decide what color the day would be. What color the day would be, imagine that. And I'd love seeing how that manifested in her multicolored cowboy boots or patterned maxi skirts, the crossbody bags. I think I counted probably about 30 different purses or crossbody bags over the years, and they always matched the shoes. These terrible heels that I'm so uncomfortable in are in honor of her. And I know it may seem trivial to focus on clothes like this, but in a world where women in STEM are often told that to succeed in STEM, they must do everything they can to act like, dress like a man, whatever that may mean. Witnessing someone as accomplished, brilliant, and proper as Professor Barmak still choose to express herself this way was inspirational. She truly believed that we needed brightness and joy in our lives. She once told me how she had fought for the walls on the 11th floor of mud to be that bright, bright green for that exact reason. The first time that I visited the TEM in the basement of Havemeyer, which for those of you who haven't been at Columbia's campus for long, I can only describe as the hallway out of a horror movie. I knew I'd found the right place and felt at ease when I saw Barmak green brightening up the wall there too. Professor Barmak always wanted everyone to feel welcomed and treated us like we were capable of meaningfully contributing, regardless of seniority. In her lab, every week, I presented slide updates, just like the grad students did, and she paid attention to every detail. I would get through 2 bullet points at most before she would stop me with a question, a suggestion, or a sharper, smarter way to frame the idea, to the point that I started dramatically pausing after each bullet in presentations outside the lab, instinctively waiting for comments that were not coming. At the time, she normalized that level of engagement so completely that I took it for granted. I was genuinely confused when my friends in other labs told me they rarely presented, or that presenting was some once in a blue moon pre-calendar marked event, or that their PIs were elusive people who they never saw. I thought Professor Barmak was the rule. Only later did I understand how special it was to be trained that way, how much those weekly meetings prepared me for every internship, every class presentation, and every professional room that I've entered since. I only got to actually take a course with her last semester, crystallography, that we heard about, which, yes, starts with a C. We moved fast, but she never made anyone feel bad for asking to slow it down. And I noticed every time for the entire semester that when someone asked a question, and I mean every time, she would thank them sincerely for asking it and say it was a good question. I understand that might sound like a public speaking tool to buy time, but we can all agree Professor Barmak knew the answer without hesitation. She probably knew it better than the textbook. She did not need to stall by saying good question. She said it like it was because she meant it. Like she was truly happy that we were there, that we asked, and that we were trying. Because let me tell you, mine included, these were not all good questions. She truly wanted us to learn, no matter what. When our second crystallography midterm was postponed because she had broken her right dominant arm, we were all worried about her and assumed that we understandably would not get our midterms back before the final the next week. Well, Professor Barmak always insisted on grading all of our tests herself, and this was no exception. We got our exams back in less than 24 hours so we could review them for all of reading week. She graded with her left hand, and she did her best to still leave explanatory comments and feedback. The last communication that I ever received from Professor Barmak was at the end of winter break. A freshman had reached out saying that she was interested in becoming an undergraduate researcher, and Professor Barmak has CC'd Catherine, another grad student, and I explaining that she would not be taking on an undergraduate student that spring, but that she, the student, could reach out to Catherine and I for help too. I remember it felt very full circle to me reading that email. I was surprised to hear that she would not be taking any undergraduates, but I was not surprised that she had responded to that girl in under an hour. I learned 2 weeks later why she was not taking any students. And that is something that I will never forget. Even then, when she must have been so tired, this powerhouse of a person was still looking out for the next generation of researchers. She was still doing everything in her power to convince someone to choose materials engineering over chemical engineering, and most importantly, doing everything to make scientific inquiry accessible. Conducting research in Professor Barmak's group for 2.5 years continues to be the most influential experience in my education and life thus far. What she told me during my interview, "You've done far more difficult things. You'll figure it out," has become my guiding phrase. And I can tell from her resilience, it was in a way hers as well. I credit those words and the countless other lessons of discipline, grit, and brilliance she taught all of us with any success I have academically and will have professionally. As I'm sure you'll hear echoed in a few moments by Matthew, I owe Professor Barmak my work ethic, my love for research, my degree, once I get it, and ultimately whatever career I end up having. I had no way of knowing it at the time, but she was the kind of educator and mentor that I and my peers write about wanting to learn from when we apply to Columbia. She made us feel like our questions mattered. She made us feel like our work mattered. She made us feel like we could figure it out. And because of Professor Barmak, I'm sure that many of us will. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew. I'm the last student to have defended in Professor Barmak's group while she was alive, but Tomorrow, I want to just quickly congratulate Luke for completing his dissertation defense in the morning tomorrow. I met Professor Barmak in 2019 on a pre-pandemic Zoom call, my first Zoom call ever, and frenetic graduate admission season. And I pretty much instantly knew that she would be the right advisor for me. We talked and she said something along the lines of, this is a 5-year degree, and she described the project, and she was so enthusiastic, it just draws you in. And I knew that this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on the microscope and study the microstructure and sort of sit somewhere in an interdisciplinary place between modeling and experiments. Of course, I only ended up really in the experiments, but that's what hooked me in. When I got my admissions letter, though, I emailed her and pretty much instantly got a response. She told me she was delighted that I reached out to her, and we set up this call. 7 years later, I'm also delighted that I reached out to her. Well, she had a sort of reputation for being a bit strict in class. I myself got a B- in crystallography, so not quite a C, but I didn't do the best. And of course, my degree research had a lot to do with crystallography. Behind the rigid syllabi was really a true mentor in research and in life. She was someone who reveled in every single success and every single failure with us. Someone I could go to and tell her that the experiment didn't work, and I could be frustrated and mad, and she would be frustrated and mad with me. And when the experiment worked or we got some trivially small result, Lauren reminded me of this a few weeks ago. She would lean back in her chair and she would go, "Yes." I really started working in the lab in July of 2020. And if you recall, that was sort of a weird year, a weird time, beginning of the pandemic. And it really was just us in the lab. There were no other students. And so I got a lot of one-on-one time, a lot of one-on-one membership or mentorship. It was she and I think Frank came by once. We had a pump that was broken, and it's like a 50-kilogram pump, and we had this jack, and we're in bunny suits, and we're masked up and distanced. All these frustrations of research that we did together. And that summer, I learned the word of sanguinity, right? Getting used to, not used to, but sort of dealing with challenges and with kind of a whatever, it is what it is, and moving forward. And that's something that I think we all experience with Professor Barmak, that despite all of these challenges and tough moments and pain, and you just push forward and continue and do the best you can. Over the next few years, I learned about UHV systems and thin films and electron microscopy, and really just what life and research is all about and how to do it and how to power through. And I learned all these technical things, but more importantly, she shared with me all of the details about the business of running a research lab, how to navigate the opaque and quietly political academic world, how to laugh through just about any research, administrative or political frustration even. I could not enumerate even a small fraction of the things I gained from our relationship, personally and professionally, but I'm confident that I will keep them with me for the rest of my days, and I hope to emulate just a sliver of her resilience and ironclad resolve. Really, even until the day she left us, she was working as hard as ever because she loved few things more than she loved the work she did, and more importantly, the people she worked with. We had a saying that there's no more human endeavor than science, right? No animal is out here doing experiments. When my first paper was accepted, I was in the lab and I was frustrated trying to get something to work that wasn't ever going to work. But she called me on the phone to make sure that I heard it from her that the paper was accepted, and that I could not just get an email and be in the office and just get another email, but we could be excited together and sort of experience it together. She's got hundreds of papers accepted, but she was just as excited as I was that this paper got through the review process. Even after her brain surgery in 2024, I guess when her cancer was recurring, or I don't know, she kind of held those cards close to her chest. In the recovery period, she worked in her tireless and relentless and insistent way to connect me to her colleagues at IBM, some of whom are here, to help set me up to make sure that I was prepared and ready to go into the world and have a successful career. A career that I'm really excited and thrilled to be starting, and devastated that she isn't able to see as I go forward. Last summer, even, I learned that she was in the hospital reading my thesis chapter. She told me it was nice to have something to do. It was nice to see the work coming together, and she was bored, and it was something to do, something to read. And she gave me real feedback. She said, I got marks, right? She had very high standards, but never unfair expectations. She just really expected you to work hard and do what you can. This was a woman who could not be stopped. Nothing but dedicated to our growth, success, and our humanity. Nothing was a showstopper to her, and showstopper in the industrial sense, not the performance sense, which she always, always, always specified when she used the expression. I'm so grateful to have known her and to have had a chance to learn as much as I did from her. And I will remember her as she always was, in bright technicolor, unbelievably stylish, with earrings of exotic metals. Have you ever seen molybdenum earrings? Lipstick matching her dress, matching her shoes, and her shoes matching her clutch that never left her side, even under a lab coat. When we're working with HF, she had her purse under the lab coat. And she told me it's because her keys were in it, and if she left the purse in the office, then she'd leave her keys and she'd be locked out, and it'd be a whole problem. We were alike in that way. She was self-assured, willing to speak her mind and demand what she was owed, but always politely and only as far as she really was owed it. She was organized, coordinated, and connected, cheerful and chatty, with a little cheeky complaining sprinkled in to make it sort of through the day. A lover of the arts and tea, and a hater of New York traffic, and those who did not use their gift of thought. A wise and widely experienced scientist, someone who seemed to always be right, even when I did not want her to be. It's a great pride to be a part of the legacy of such a woman, and as I step into the world on a path she helped forge for me, I hope I can continue to make her proud wherever she may be now. Thank you.
Thank you both. That was really, really meaningful. And so finally, for the last word, we turn to one of our closest colleagues in the department, one of the people we are forever grateful to for bringing Katie into our lives at Columbia, the former APAM chair and professor of material science and engineering, Professor Chev Noya.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. How am I going to give a talk after those two stellar talks that you just heard? I was asked actually first to read a remembrance from Professor Irving Herman, who was past chair. He was chair of APAM separately, total of 12 years. And he was the person who recruited Katie to APAM with my help. I will then read two short letters from two old students. Then I will finish with my own personal things. So first from Professor Herman. I am so very sorry that I am out of state today, and I would like to have been there delivering my thoughts about Katie. We each have had the pleasure and honor of interacting with Katie in many different ways, each being very special. When, as APAM chair, I learned of Gertrude Neumark's generous gift to our Department of Physics Electronics chair, I knew it would be transformative for us, and it was. It was through this search that I first met Katie, and I am forever thrilled that she accepted this position. In speaking about Katie's time and accomplishments at Columbia, one phrase keeps on popping, very proud of. Katie was dynamic, timeless, tireless, and remarkable guiding force. She was a respected and caring colleague and a professor with very high standards and intensity, as you have heard our colleagues here talk to you. She really worked hard on propelling both research and teaching. She put together a transmission electron microscopy lab, random material science lab, and I think, this Professor Herman, she was very proud of all her activities, and our department, school, and university have certainly been very proud of these many years Katie spent with us. Gertrude Neumark would have been very honored by Katie being the inaugural holder of the named professorships that she established, and very proud of Katie's time here. We are all so blessed that Katie came to Columbia and spent these years with us. I am personally so proud to have known her. That's Professor Herman. Just a couple of things. we were looking for a good, not a good, stellar TEM person befitting Columbia, and Professor Barmak joined us and was very good. So the next one is from a student. Dear Professor Barmak, I think this might be the biggest news from 2023. Drum roll. I taught face transformations last semester, and at the end of my lecture, I dedicated my appreciation to you with a photo of you and me from graduation. I am attaching our photo. Your face transformation class was one of my two favorite classes in college, the other being crystallography, the one that starts with a C, right? I loved it so much that I kept all of your lecture notes and exams. Truth be told, the exam questions I did not quite understand 100% back then. Now I understand much better on how creative and brilliant your questions were. I will use your questions and your exams for my class going forward. That's the first student. Now the second student. Dear Professor Barmak, I want to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to you upon graduating. I vividly remember the first question I asked during my time at Columbia when I was still a master's student. It was during your first crystallography class on a Tuesday afternoon in September 2017. I mean, it was so important that the gentle person remembers the date, the class, and the question. You kept mentioning the word Cartesian, and I couldn't grasp it. So I asked you after class. Despite your repeated explanations, I still couldn't understand it. So I asked you how to spell the word. You patiently replied, and as soon as I reached the library, I immediately opened my laptop to search the term. When I discovered that it meant rectangular coordinate system, I felt very embarrassed and realized that learning in English was a significant obstacle I needed to overcome. Just like Lauren said, she would take all the questions very seriously and explain it in very minute detail, even when you would think, well, this person should have known it. Katie went and gave all her all. From that day on, I diligently prepared for all my classes. This laid a solid foundation of knowledge in material science for me and gave me a GPA higher than 4, and I attribute it all to you. Your lectures were so clear and systematic, and your approach to my naive questions so incredibly patient and meticulous, for which I am deeply grateful. Again, mark of a great teacher. So I will now talk very briefly about my interactions with Katie, both good and not so good. Not so good. That doesn't mean we had anything bad between us, I'll tell you. I met Katie in Jim Harper's group at IBM, Yorktown Heights. Several members of that group are sitting in the back. We all spoke together, met together, and I particularly remember a party where I met Frank and Zerkis. Zerkis was very big now, but he was big then. Anyway, based on my knowledge of what she was and what she could do, I helped recruit her to Columbia, and I was very happy when she came. When she became the director of material science, and I was first vice chair, then chair, we worked very closely on working on the materials program, trying to make sure that it went the way a good program should go. Katie worked tirelessly. She had lots of ideas. Even though she was very patient with her students, she did not suffer fools gladly in her colleagues, especially me. So we had quite a bit of exchanges between us. She worked on not just the transmission electron microscopy lab, she put together one of the best X-ray labs, really pushed forward the equipment that we had. She had good labs and she knew how to deal with problem people. We actually had to deal with some really problematic students, but she was successful and those people graduated in the end. Now, we were talking about ballet Professor Spiegelman talked about ballet. Well, I always went to her office every couple of days, and there was this used, old, worn out pair of ballet shoes hanging there. What is this? I never asked because I don't like asking those kind of questions. But then one day I invited somebody from GE Schenectady Labs, a very good woman who really knew non-destructive testing. She came, Katie and she saw each other, they embraced. I'm thinking, what's happening? They trained and performed together in ballet. It is such a small world, this is. It was amazing. That is when I learned that she was a ballet dancer that was at the level of a professional ballet dancer. Okay. Then, so we talked about it. She told me, she intimated at the time, this was 12 years ago, that she might be ill. Then about 10 years ago, she comes into my office and says, well, I may have a far-field metastasis. I immediately went to Mary Boyce, the dean at the time. And I said, what are we going to do? Well, we are going to pray and we'll try to help Katie. She didn't ask for any quarter, worked right through it. After that, of course, I couldn't tell this to anybody in the department. I had to keep it to myself. I would be getting bi-monthly reports, and she was better for a while. But then, as somebody said, it went to the bone, then it went to the brain. I mean, it was a hard thing to carry all these years. And she worked through it without at all giving up. So with that, I will miss her. We will all miss her.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you all the speakers, all the people who attended, family, friends, colleagues, for attending this tribute to commemorate the work and life of Katie Barmak. And it doesn't have to end here. The family department and school invite you back to continue sharing memories in the APAM department, second floor Mud Building. And I also just like to take this opportunity to thank the dean for his help in this and everyone on the APAM staff, especially Jamie, Mary, Christina, whose guidance, compassion, and remarkable organization made this possible. Also like to thank the staff of St. Paul's and our wonderful organist, Ina Foster Osborne. Thank you for their help. And I look forward to meeting you all at the reception. So thank you all for coming, and we all miss Katie. So thank you.